You know, looking back at this, I thought this was gonna be one of the movies that I'd forget about instantly. One of the ones that I'd be like, yeah, it was bad, but I didn't really care about. But no, Beer for My Horses is one of the worst movies I've seen this year, and one of the worst movies I've ever seen in any of these genre of sucks. Part of that has to do with how offensive the movie is, and I'll get into that in a bit. But another part of that has to do with the fact that it's really unfunny. It's just so damn stupidly typical of a movie that's filled with a bunch of you know what, not even gonna be nice about it, a bunch of rednecks in the movie. And I don't care if someone says that that's offensive, that that's not a term I should use. Well, you know what, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. The whole movie was literally an insult to anyone who wasn't white, and honestly it was a bit sexist too. So as far as I'm concerned, fuck you. I'm not even trying to be nice about it. Just fuck you. Look, I get it. A lot of movies come out and they always make, minorities, Mexicans, whoever they want, the bad guys. It's really nothing new. But even then, still seeing it is just annoying. And look, I get that this movie was done about a decade ago, so it's not like it's from point of being more enlightened. But come on, that's still no excuse. I mean, yeah, I know someone's gonna bring up like, oh well, you weren't too a little bit forgiving on movies from like that time period that use homophobic jokes, and I'm like, look, I don't think those were right either. Just to be clear, I don't think those were any more right, but at the very least, it's a little more understandable given that not as many people were calling it out. People were calling this shit out even back then. And look, I know people are gonna say like, well, people were calling out that stuff too back then too, and I'm like, yeah, that's true, but still, it wasn't as much, and that doesn't mean that makes it okay for that movie that does the homophobic stuff either. I'm just saying it's something that is worth acknowledging when going into it. And even then, it's like, okay, look, one joke versus having the whole movie centered around just stereotype upon stereotype of Mexican characters. I mean, there's a difference there. And again, not that I'm saying that, homophobia is right and, racism is wrong. They're both wrong. It's just one of those things where it's like, consider where you're throwing your shit at, Like I said, with homophobia, even though it's wrong, it's not something that, people were calling out as much as they were with racism back then, which either way, yeah, it's both wrong. But at the same time, again, you do have to consider that year one having like one, two, three, I don't know how many gay jokes sprinkled throughout it, was not the worst thing about that movie. I mean, granted, it was something that definitely hurts the movie. This movie, on the other hand, has huge sections of the plot and antagonists that are just stereotypes. And look, maybe it's not the worst ones. I'll fully acknowledge that it's not the worst ones. It's stuff that we've seen before, but the fact that it's still there, the fact that it's still promoting it, just makes it so damn hurtful. And fine, maybe it's because I'm a little more biased since I am, Hispanic. So, that does, hurt me a lot more. I'm fully cop to that. I'm not saying that, again, that the other thing isn't wrong. I'm just saying this is what hurts me more. And, I know whatever I say it's gonna hurt someone, but I do apologize. I'm not trying to hurt anyone here. Except maybe, racist as white people. You guys can go fuck yourself as far as I care. And god damn do I hate this movie. And look, I haven't even gotten into the plot of the movie, so that shows you. And to be fair, the movie doesn't even get to the plot of itself until about 40 minutes in, which, by that point you're about halfway through the movie. So, yeah, maybe I don't have, maybe I have a reason why I'm doing this. So, Beer for My Horses. You got country singers. I guess the main character is Toby Keith. I'm not really too familiar with his music. I'm sorry if I'm offending someone at the fact that I don't know the majesty of Toby Keith, but fuck him. And this whole movie is, well, okay, maybe I shouldn't go that far. But then again, these people are pretty shitty as far as I've known. I mean, one of the main characters is Ted Nugent, and yeah, doesn't matter what you tell me about, like, oh, separate the artist from the whatever. He's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit. And maybe I'm going way too personal, but you know what? It's not like this is a professional review. That's not really an excuse for me to be a piece of shit to people, but fuck him. So you got this movie. Toby Keith is cop, sheriff, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if he was all that respectable in the movie. It looked like he was, but fuck him. And he starts dating some girl. Throughout the movie, he arrests some drug lord. Of course, he's Hispanic. Of course, it's a Mexican drug lord. Um, and then it turns out that he has a brother, and the brother is like, okay, I'll kidnap your girl if because you arrested my brother, and that's the where the movie gets really started, I guess. The girl gets kidnapped, and now they have Toby Keith with some dumbass officer. I don't know if he was played by a musician as well. And then Ted Nugent, but not Ted Nugent, going off to rescue his girlfriend while delivering the brother. That's your basic movie. I mean, along the way they meet a prostitute, but it's the whole hooker with a heart of gold. That's kind of a detour, to be quite honest, because she appears like for 15 minutes and then that's it. The ending for her storyline is kind of just half-assed, and it's further to this movie being a sexist piece of shit. And from there it's just like your typical, okay, we're in Mexico, let's do some stereotypical jokes. We're gonna be nice about it by showing that not all Mexicans are bad, but realistically the only Mexicans that aren't bad in this movie are background characters, and at best a kid that gets given the duty of delivering a message, which could have gotten that kid killed. So yeah, fuck these guys. And then after a little drink, after a little stereotypical joke, like one of the characters pops up with a poncho and everything, and yeah, the characters acknowledge that he looks ridiculous, but the fact that this asshole does it, and it's like a really racist ass thing, and the only thing that makes the other characters roll their eyes at it is just the fact that it looks ridiculous, not the fact that it's racist. Which I'm not saying that every character has to slow down the movie and say, hey, that's racist, but then again, it wouldn't really hurt the movie to at least try to be decent. But hey, it's a piece of shit. And god damn that I really hate this one. It's just so damn offensive. I mean, it's not like it's one of the hardest sit-throughs, though. Granted, it was pretty damn boring, especially considering, like I said, the movie doesn't really get started until about 40 minutes in, and that's in a movie that's about 90 minutes, so you're already about halfway in. And look, there are other movies like that. Even like Lion King takes about 45 minutes to get to its second act, but you know what? The Lion King is still a well-told story, so you don't mind it as much that they're taking a while to get to that. This is not a well-told story, so, fuck it. And like I said earlier, maybe I shouldn't be too harsh on the people behind it, because they are just doing a job. It's one of those things where it's like, try to be nice to the person. There are people behind the camera, and there are people who are just trying to make work, and they don't fully agree with it. But at least from my understanding, the main character is also writing and directing. I could be wrong. Maybe I read that wrong, but from my understanding, Toby Keith was responsible for more than just the acting, and that really does add to the fact that, yeah, this is a piece of shit movie. And given what you know about a lot of the people behind the camera, yeah, they're often pieces of shit, or supporting people that are pieces of shit. I mean, like Willie Nelson pops up, for example, and I can't really shit on him, even though it's a stupid scene too, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, at least with Willie Nelson, I'm not saying that he's perfect, but you could at least hear stuff where it's like, okay, he's not really like in support of shitty things, so that makes him a little, like, makes me feel a little like I should be a little nicer. Like, I will acknowledge that he did bad in this movie, but I can't personally go after him. the way I'm going after, like, Ted Nugent or Toby Keith. And again, I part of me feels like I shouldn't, just because that really isn't the right way to do these things. But at the same time, man, the politics is just shitty. The Just the movie itself, the way it's presenting certain groups of people, especially my people, is just racist as all fuck. And it's really just not just my people. I mean, granted, there's a whole scene where the silly comic relief character is in a bathroom and he's singing. You get just a short visual with like a bunch of what are supposed to be like gangbangers, and most of them are people of color. They make it nice by being like, oh, even though they look like stereotypical gangbangers, they're actually nice because they start singing along with him. But it's still one of those things where it's like, yeah, but you just made a bunch of people look like that. I mean, not that I'm not saying that there aren't people who look like that. I'm not saying that there aren't people who are evil from my race. Of course, there's evil people in all races, but the fact that you're only presenting them as stereotypes, that's what gets me so that much. Like, just to put an example, there's a classic movie, which I'm not saying that it's perfect in the race department, but it feels a lot more. And it's a movie called The Treasure of Sierra Madre. I'm not going to go into detail about it because this video is not about it, and I'm already going long enough as it is. But that movie at least acknowledges that there are more than just the banditos. And that makes all the difference. Like, again, not that it's perfect in that regard. I mean, of course, it's a movie from the 1940s, so obviously some stuff is still going to be offensive, if you look at it now. But it's done well enough to where it's like, yeah, this is pretty respectful, and I can ignore the parts that are problematic for the stuff that is good. I can't say that about this movie, not just because it's not good, but because there's no presentation other than stereotypes in this movie. And even if people say like, well, should we, stop our movie to show some positivity, show some stuff that isn't stereotypes, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's not too much to ask for. It's not like I'm forcing you to do it, but at the very least, just doing a tiny enough scene makes all the difference. And if you can't be bothered to do the tiny enough difference, your movie is shit. And it's not that I'm trying to force an SJW agenda or anything like that. It's that even a good movie will acknowledge, okay, let's, actually show more of these things. And it's often done naturally. Even if it's done unnaturally, I would rather that than to just get a bad movie that shows nothing but racism and just stupid shit. And I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. It's just... And look, I know it's not the only movie that does this. I mean, there was a movie like Bright, that stupid Orc Cop movie from Netflix that came out like about a year ago or so, that did the racist shit too. And I mean, at least that one had a cop that was kind of nice, but even then, Alamo, and I'm talking about other movies. And look, Beer for My Horses is not a good movie. It's one of the worst movies I've seen this year, and the only reason why it's not the worst movie of this January of suck, at least so far, is that I saw Fred the movie. So, standards. Oh well.